Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and The Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn
Whoop,
football team.
stop,
Yep.
stop. What are we gonna do? Our new,
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
yeah.
Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and The Cranky Fan, your favorite Giants podcast's favorite Giants podcast. I am your host, the Football Grump, and with me as always is Mike, the Cranky Fan. And the final episodes of the Giants' first ever Hard Knocks series have concluded. Last night, we're a day behind now, but that's mostly just because I'm sick and you're on vacation. What did you think? What's up? How you been?
I am on vacation too, and I am coming off COVID. So we are both a little head foggy, which may not make any difference to you people who listen to us, since we always sound like we're head foggy. So we're just gonna have to, we'll get through this together, Grump. Hard Knocks. Is it just me, or is that incredibly boring, that last episode? I know you were complaining the week before how nothing really piqued your interest and it was just kind of, but to me, again, when we know the results and we know what's going to happen, and when you go through 4 episodes and you building to these moments of it, they could have done something to make it interesting. And I didn't need 35 minutes of everybody congratulating each other like they just won the Super Bowl. They literally did their job. They did their draft pick, and that was the crux of it. And I think, I got some thoughts on how you could. I think it's a great concept having this off-season Hard Knocks, and overall for the season, I was entertained. Didn't learn much. I was entertained. I think there's a lot of ways they can improve this show going forward if they keep doing this.
Um, so I'll give overall feelings first here before we get to the episode itself. Do you think that you felt like you didn't learn much because it's the team that you already cover? Like, if this were the Bears, do you think you would have learned more about their process, their front office, and what went on in the draft for them? Because, like, I I kind of felt that way. Like, it. So when
It,
you
yeah.
answer first.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most of us, like, we knew every step of the way. We follow all the rumors. We follow the reporting of, the good writers who follow the Giants, what they do. So we're pretty clued in. And I don't necessarily think that this show is targeted for Giant fans and then hardcore Giant fans and then content creators. I think this is for the masses to, to do a behind the curtain of how an organization does the off season. Having said that, I didn't really learn that much about what their thought process ultimately is. I think it was a lot of kind of reacting to what the market is and the availability to make a trade or not. I never went, this show never gave me the sense of we have an off-season plan. And I think that's more so that they didn't want to unzip their fly and show their goods more
Right.
than they don't have one. This is
Yeah,
this
that's
is a
kind of how I
very
felt.
this is a very savvy front office. You can say what you want, whether draft pick A or free agent B panned out or not. This is a modern front office, and I believe modern coaches. Something I've been screaming about that we need to do in this team. This is not old school Gettleman who, based on which way his fart stinks, is how he wants to draft a person or not, or going for fancy football names or old school thinking of need a running back, that type of stuff. So um, I think if you're just the average NFL fan, or if you're just the wife of an NFL fan or the husband of an NFL fan who doesn't really like the NFL, I think you probably enjoyed the show a lot more than we would. And I think it's honestly a show like this is to make the tent wider to be an NFL fan. It's not unlike tying in popularity with Taylor Swift to bring more people to the NFL
Right.
tent. It's something like that.
Yeah, I
And it's
agree with
perfectly,
that.
and it's perfectly fine. I have no problem with that at all.
I do, but that's
Why?
okay. Why?
Why?
Why? Because I think it's obnoxious. Has nothing to do with football, and
Well, I mean,
you're not getting anyone to the table to do anything when you do something like that. But
let me give a little anecdotal story really quick. Talking about bringing people to the table. So this past weekend, I was at a wedding, family wedding. I was with my nieces, and my one niece, she's 17, out of the blue says, "Hey, I'd like next time we come to New York, I'd like to go to a Knicks game, but I want to go to see the 76ers." I'm like, "Why the Sixers?" She's like, "They're my new favorite team." I'm like, "Really? Why?" And it took me a second. The Sixers drafted some clown. It was like a big Instagram personality. He's obviously, he was a Duke. He played for Duke, really good. He should be drafted. He's not, LeBron's son or anything, but she's a fan now of that player and that team and more of the NBA because this guy had nothing to do with the NBA or basketball has lured her in. So my point is that shows like this, and Taylor Swift connection bring more people to the table to watch the game and make the game stronger, I think.
Well, I'm just saying that the Taylor Swift connection might bring people to the TV set, but doesn't actually bring in a new fan. I think if Taylor Swift does not show up to a single game next year and is not a story, anyone who, quote unquote, showed up last year will not show up this year. So that's why I think that's...
Some might.
I think that's just a cheap version of... This, I actually... I don't think that this necessarily brings eyes to TV sets. I think it brings consistent eyes. Like, I'm already into this kind of thing. Like you said, we're not the demo for this. But this specific thing is something that I really, really like. But me being who I am, I think if I were 14 or 15 and this show came out, I would quickly become who I am now. Does that make sense? I'd be all over it.
I'd be all over this show. Of course, right, because the difference between the off-season Hard Knocks and the regular season Hard Knocks is that there are no personality storylines to follow. Like,
not really. I mean, they tried to do the Joe Shane thing.
Yeah, but something, no one gives a shit about Joe Shane.
Yeah.
But a player who's, here's the rookie, here's the standard playlist, the template for Hard Knocks is the first round draft pick, the guy struggling to make the team as an undrafted free agent, the guy who's been in the league trying to hang on. So you try to learn about their backstories and their families and their plight and stuff, and you get attached to them and you care more about whether the 8th round draft picks makes it or not. This is like, well, is Joe Shane, who's already established in the NFL as the GM, do you really honestly care that, his wife and, the wife of the head coach are at some Jersey bar celebrating the fact that their lives are great already? That doesn't really make the story that much more interesting.
No, and what I do think is that a 14 or 15-year-old me might watch this and be like, I don't have the chops to be an NFL player. That dream is dead. But there's nothing that says I can't eventually do this. At 14, 15, if I start now getting into watching this stuff and helping out the high school team and stuff, and then, try doing it again in college and stick with it, and then after college be a graduate assistant and keep, what I mean? Like, there's no reason that you couldn't work towards this path.
You also make a really interesting point that, the pathway to, let's just call it sports management in general.
Okay.
Forget the pathway to being a head coach, but the pathway to being a general manager, the pathway to being a team president, the pathway to, running an organization, whether it's at the major league level or the minor league level or the athletic. There are a lot of jobs that are out there, and it's not really crystal clear if you're 15 or 16 years old that those opportunities really do exist.
Right.
And how do we get from point A to point Z? It's usually, I'm going to try to be an athlete first and a player first, and you're probably not going to be that. So then what? But, not many, I don't ever remember growing up with anybody, friend, opponent I played with, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like a general manager.
Yeah, no one.
But it's,
but I mean,
you watch a show like this, it might be interesting.
You tie this into Madden as well. Not that that's real life, but it's it's practice reps. It's understanding how trades work and player value and all that other stuff. Yeah, I think that this was a cool thing. I understand that we're not the demo, so this was not particularly exciting. I also agree that some of what made this not exciting was keeping things close to the chest while also unveiling the curtain a little bit.
The biggest thing is we knew what happened. We knew the result. And
but what sucks? They had this episode. This episode did stink. I 100% agree with you. And I think that things happened that for one reason or another has been left out. Like you said, a lot of congratulating, which I get why it's in there because it's to show how all this work, led to this one moment. It's a big deal for them.
Everybody wins the offseason and everybody wins.
That's not even the point. It's the point that they work for during the season. Those guys are working. They're going out to schools. All those scouts and stuff, they're hard at work. They have nothing to do with the Giants organization in those moments. Their job with the Giants organization starts as soon as the Giants season ends, and they have to report to the GM, and then they do all this work to this one moment. I get all that. That's fine. I didn't need 35 minutes of it, and I'm sure that plenty of stuff happened with phone calls and draft boards and guys coming on or off, and I'm sure that the Giants organization didn't want their feelings and thoughts on certain current players, that they didn't pick or that they did have interviews with and did, JJ McCarthy, etc. I get all
always
that.
going to be the risk of doing this show, though.
The only things that I found interesting in this were the only nuggets of news. Indianapolis wanted to trade up, and Joe Shane decided to stay put and draft Malik Neighbors. It was too far back for him. I don't recall that being news at any point. I don't remember ever hearing that.
The Jets?
The Jets too. And then the Giants had heavy interest in both Kamari Lassiter and Kool-Aid McKinstry. You can tell that they realized that CB2 is a really big issue, but they were more than happy to settle for Tyler Nubin, if you want to even call it settling, because safety was also a huge need. That was pretty much all I was able to glean out of this. So
yeah, it was interesting when they would have been the first person who to trade up if they could with New England for 3, but as soon as they're getting calls from teams below them, they had a little bit of this smug attitude, I thought, of like, oh, the Jets are calling, okay, we're gonna stay where we are, we're good. It was a little obnoxious, but so whatever.
I mean, I think they had said in the previous episode that they were going to entertain calls, but that they really needed their socks blown off because they were more than happy with Malik Neighbors, and if the trade back option was going to be Rome Odunze.
But they were kind of smirky, even it's like, oh, the Jets are who's calling? Oh, Joe Douglas to the Jets.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, really? And then it was like, well, what are they offering? And so it was like at first they were kind of like, yeah. So
I mean, maybe we also don't know of any other conversations that happened between Douglas and Shane earlier on throughout this whole process.
That's fair, very fair.
May have had numerous phone calls because I believe he spoke to every GM for all 31 other teams
multiple times.
Yeah,
multiple times.
So we don't know the backstory there. Whatever.
I also think coming out of this show, I think GMs are far more plugged into what is probably going to happen more than we think they do.
Right.
I mean, I think, these mock boards run up and down. Things change all the time. What if this happens and this happens in this scenario? But I really think the other GMs in this, all the GMs in this league are so plugged into the real story and what's really happening that the Giants knew New England was not trading.
Yeah.
And maybe some of this was performative a little bit for cameras or not, but I think, I would say they probably know 85% of how the draft is going to go before they even put on their jackets and their suits and get ready for draft day.
I would agree. So that wraps up Hard Knocks. I thought it was entertaining.
Last point. If season's on again next year and it's okay, two-part question. If next year it's the Eagles, are you watching? Next year, if it's the Titans, are you watching?
Yes and yes. You mean for this off-season thing?
Correct.
Yes. I don't really care which team it is, but you said the Eagles. I am very interested to see Howie Roseman, but I don't think it'll ever happen because I think he's a snake and I think he does cheat the rules.
I use the Eagles as more the example of a division opponent.
Sure.
Not necessarily the Eagles, but more a division opponent versus a non-conference opponent. That was my
I honestly think that this is far more interesting than the training camp one. Honest to God.
At this point now, absolutely yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't even watch them in season 1 last year. Did you?
No, but I do think that this year's in-season is the entire AFC North could be interesting.
See, that's what my idea.
I don't fucking know if I have the time. You know what I mean? Like during the season, I'm plugged into the Giants. Let
me tell you something. These episodes were rather short.
They were like 40 minutes tops.
That's it. I can spend 40 minutes on a weeknight watching that. That's fine.
That's true.
Listen to us two goddamn idiots ramble on for an hour and a half. If you have the time for that, I think you can, for 40 minutes watch that. So, that was one of my suggestions for this altogether. Was the original one was they should do this and have cameras on all 32 teams, so you can have back and forth banter with all the different things happening. But if they condense it down to a division of 4 teams, That I'm interested in. And for this show specifically, I'd be very interested in that for the off-season one.
Um, Only thing I didn't really like about this is that I think the Giants slipped up. To me, it's an embarrassment that their big board leaked because it didn't get blurred out. The fact that it's being circulated around on Twitter, I think, is a huge misstep on their part. I know it ultimately doesn't really matter. I just think it. I don't know. I made fun of the Cowboys when they did it, and I'm gonna make fun of the Giants for doing it. You know what I mean?
If this is March 15th, I'm very pissed. Right, but right now
That's a good
it's
point.
yeah. Now that it's late July, but that's not going to change anything.
I went to training camp yesterday. I was at
nice.
camp day 6, so a couple of things to glean from that. I'm going to start with general overall feelings here. So I'm locked into a couple of things. First and foremost, I'm locked into the offense. Why? Because I think I made it very clear that the thing I'm looking for this year is an offense that scores points. I'm hyperbolic when I say this, but I don't really care how the defense does this year. You have a new defensive coordinator coming in, which means that they don't have the perfect personnel for what he wants to run. So you're going to get kind of a fluky, look into what they have. But more than anything, where they need to improve is scoring fucking points, especially in today's NFL.
Can I add to that just a little bit?
Sure.
Where obviously I want this team to score more points. I also want this offense, if they can't score points, can you hold on to the ball for more than 3 downs on a possession?
Agreed.
Can you at least, give special teams and the defense better field position by just 3 and outing or just, 4 and punting or something? Can you at least get the ball to midfield and then, try to, keep your defense on the bench for a little bit, for a little rest, and then give them some better field position? So, yes, obviously we want more scoring, but to me, it's almost as important that the offense is helping the defense, not putting them in a tougher situation than they already in.
Right. So I was locked into just the general play of the offense. I'm obviously locked into Jones coming off of injury. I was locked into all the draft picks as much as I could be. Improvements along the offensive line. And then I guess the only other thing that I was trying to keep an eye on for this were sort of the early position battles that I was hearing about from writers and other podcasts and stuff like that. So those are the things I was trying to keep a focus on. So
let me ask you something. Let me ask you a question. When you were watching, was it easy or difficult to tell any changes in like Dable having his hands more in the offense, in the drills, if they're doing play calling, any of that stuff more than he had in previous years?
This felt like a totally different training camp from the other 2 Dable ones. They started almost right away with a quick 11-on-11 walkthrough before they split up into individual drills and all that stuff. They went into more team periods. This was I had the second day of pads, I think, day 6. Yeah, second day of pads.
I believe so.
I didn't even not that I was looking for him, but I couldn't even find Mike Kafka.
He was also pretty hard to find on Hard Knocks too.
Yeah, true. But I mean, in all honesty, with Dable calling the plays, like, he's easy to find. He's right there. He's got the walkie, the headset. He's in and out of the quarterback's ears. He's moving around. And he's not easy to spot, being that he's like 100 pounds thinner now. I'm not kidding. Like, if it weren't for the bald head, I had trouble finding him. But, once you locate him, you're like, okay, I really didn't. I wasn't looking for him, but I couldn't find Mike Kafka.
You know something? We're in year 3. He's had a 2-year assessment of the personnel he has both on the field and on the sidelines, and his determination is he needs to have his hands, he needs to be more involved, and that's his absolute right to do. And if he thinks that's best, let's see what happens. So go for it.
So here are the immediate things that I focused on here. The story thus far has been that Daniel Jones has been inaccurate, right? So here I am trying to see if that is bloviating or what.
Not good, Bob.
The misfires are absolutely real. There are some built-in excuses here. You know what I mean? Like, number 1 is he hasn't thrown really since October, and that's fair. Number 2 is that he is now trying to throw to Jalen Hyatt and Malik Neighbors, who are significantly, and I mean eye test alone, they are way faster. So you can see him
throwing behind guys, or
he's just not getting it. Like, he's overthrowing, underthrowing. He's trying to figure out the timing. And before we get too far into what I saw in practice, I'm not freaking out, because this is the time to get everything wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like,
people forget that.
No, I understand
practice
that.
Is practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Practice is to work out stuff so it's right in a game.
Right.
The worst thing I hate, and it's been my big pet peeve, and it really is now, is I don't need to see numbers and stats on practice 6. Was he 6 of 7, or was he 6 of 46? You don't know what they're working on, what they're trying to do. Correct. Is he trying something different with footwork? Are they trying something different with the offensive line? Are they purposely doing? You don't know. This is not where numbers are an evaluator. This is, to your point, it's the eye test.
Yeah, so this is not a stats thing. I don't even know what his numbers were on the day. This is an eye thing. Yeah. I've been going to training camps for a long time now.
Yeah.
This was a mess. The offense looks like out of sync. And it's, I know that half-ass prick Connor Hughes keeps writing articles where he only shows up at Giants for like the camp, and then he works both the Giants and Jets and does a half-ass job on both. Keeps saying that Drew Lock is going to get snaps. Drew Lock looked just as bad, if not worse, so that's not a solution. Right now it looks like everyone's out of sync and no one's really getting them in control. It's just a mess all over the place. If 10 guys do something right, one guy does something so catastrophically wrong, it blows up the whole fucking play. And it's not the same guy every time. But speaking specifically to Jones, in that, like, even the easy throws are being missed. Guys wide open and short, intermediate, deep, all over the field. He's just not hitting them. And, it's not 100% of the throws that he's missing, but it's enough where it's like, what is happening right now? Because, like I said, I've seen a number of practices in my time. It usually looks somewhat like a game when they do team drills. You see some movement, and, they go up and down the field. Like, no, this was a straight-up mess.
What was the reaction of the coaching staff when all this is happening? Like,
nobody
is
not
he pitching
freaking
a
out.
Fit? No? Okay.
Not that I've noticed. I mean, like, the players call him intense, and, I'm sure that comes up in the film and meeting and stuff. But on the field, it didn't really look like he was blowing a gasket, throwing things, nothing like that.
Okay, because we've seen that in practice before. We've been to the to training camp where he's been pissed.
Sure, it's usually due to wasted time. Like guys screwing around or screwing up.
We know he has a short temper and a short fuse, period. And, you've seen repetitiveness of, like, not playing well stuff. You might see him just, go Dable on his ass. But, okay, that's a good sign. Maybe it's a good sign for Dable, and maybe it's a good sign that, this is in that margin of error that they're expecting at this stage in the process.
Right. Yeah. So
hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't take practice very seriously, because this is probably the best point, is we never know exactly what's being worked on. Mm-hmm. That said, the timing looks really off. Throws are late, and that's why they're misfires. You know what I mean? I think that timing has to do a lot with why the throws are under or overthrown or low or high. I think the other thing is just getting used to the speed of new guys. I think that's certainly a part of it. They are absolutely, I don't know if it was just this practice, but they are pushing the ball downfield. They're pushing that in practice.
Well, we know that's what Dable wanted, because we saw it with Tyrod Taylor, and we even
with DeVito too.
And I was gonna say, even when he had the opportunity, even DeVito a little bit as well, and also with Daniel Jones when he's healthy.
Right.
So
I will freak out after a preseason game. I know you don't take preseason that seriously. I take that pretty seriously.
I just don't think the sample sizes are big enough to me to freak out on every. If he's gonna have 6 pass attempts, I can't get as worked up as I can in a game when he has 25.
In one preseason game, sure, but all 3, I'm gonna look at it cumulatively. If I don't see something, I'm gonna be pissed, because, at that point, like, bullets are live. So,
not to go off topic, but has it been announced at all what the plan is for how much the starters would play in the first?
Not that I've heard.
Okay,
I don't even know if anyone's even asked yet.
Okay, because I know the Hall of Fame game is uh,
Tonight, for those listening, yeah.
tonight. Yeah, damn. So as I know that none of the Bear starters were starting.
Correct.
So, but they also that's an extra week, and it's a different thing. So,
Yes.
I'd be curious to see. Remember we said last week, what do we want out of our training camp? And I wanted to see a team that's more prepared to play. I'm going to be a little disappointed if for that first game it's like we're not. Drew Lock is starting. That's going to bother
The
me.
the first game, whatever, but all three games, I want to see them take it seriously for two of the three. If it's fine for me if it's the first game that they take it easy or the last game they take it easy. I don't care which. That's fine as long as you take two out of the three seriously.
I'd like to see 30 pass attempts by
I'm with you
Daniel
there.
Jones. Over the 3 games, I'd like to see 30 in total. How you divide that up is up to you, but I think you need to get 30 throws in you.
All right, so you ready for some good news?
Well, it's been a few years, so why not?
So the offensive line, they've signed Greg Van Roten. I was
Mm-hmm.
not there for that, but he
For
was.
the signing or for him on the field?
For him, I mean, he was there actually, but the signing was announced that day. So he was on the field in a jersey, but not in pads, and he was just shaking hands and talking to people and stuff. Evan Neal is still on the PUP list, but he's been replaced by Jermaine Illuminor. JMS didn't practice. He's still nursing a shoulder tweak, is not believed to be serious. But here's what's interesting is that the signing of Van Roten, Neal still being on PUP, at this point, beat writers are all sort of in agreement that the speculation is the line is going to look like this. Andrew Thomas at left tackle, John Runyon at left guard, where he is comfortable, John Michael Schmitz at center, Greg Van Roten at right guard, where he's comfortable, and Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle. And that, to me, I am very happy with. And I'll before we, whatever, with Illuminor and Thomas, the offensive line looked good. I mean, there was time to throw. Now, the middle still looked like a mess in the run game, and I'll get to that in a minute.
You
But
don't have your
remember,
first of all, you don't have your starting center playing.
exactly, JMS isn't playing. And I would say right now, my biggest concern, given this line and the depth that they have, is that they don't really have a true backup center. So they're just trying random stuff with Austin Schlottman and Aaron Stinney, and like the snaps were all over the place. That was a mess, and that's fine.
That sounds like something they can pick up after a cut down day. They can get somebody who can snap the ball.
Just
I'm not worried
somebody
about
who
that.
knows how to play center. That's it.
Right.
Just get a center. Make him be the backup center. I was very pleased with the pass blocking. It wasn't perfect, you know what I mean? But a lot of it looked like assignment errors, which, mental stuff is going to get worked out. Not
Let me ask you a
physically
question.
just getting beat. Okay.
Who was that line going up against? Was it the most of the number ones on the defensive line?
Yeah, I'm strictly talking one-on-ones. The ones versus ones, yes.
Okay, that's what I was asking you. Like, they're looking good against the Dexter Lawrences of the world, or was it?
Well, Dex didn't practice, but for the tackles, Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, yeah. Not that they were getting shut down, but like there was time. And like if one guy busted, the other four were okay. So there was an escape route for the quarterback, whether it was Drew Lock or Daniel Jones or whatever.
I want to make one thing pretty clear in the way I've been looking at this as we're picking up these signings in the offensive line. Like everybody is so quick to say, well, Evan Neal, they're done with Evan Neal, and every move has to be regarding Evan Neal's future. This offensive line last year sucked.
Yeah.
It's the starters sucked, and we had zero depth. So they needed to make additions regardless of Evan Neal, whether he was, injured reserve of Evan Neal, Blatt Evan Neal, all-pro Evan Neal. These moves still had to be made for, at the bare minimum, increasing the depth on this team. I think the way they've been piecing these guys together, kind of addresses all of these needs. And it's like, we have to be ready for if Evan Neal is not ready for week one. We have to be ready for if Evan Neal is never going to be a starting right tackle ever again for this team. And I think these moves have a little bit of flexibility. And if they have to stand pat with, well, this is, that five guys that you mentioned, that's the way it's going to be for the start of the season. And that's the way it's going to be. And we can feel at least like we have an NFL line. And it may not be the greatest line in the world, but at least it's functional. And, we'll deal with it as we go. And we'll deal with Evan Neal when it's time to deal with him.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what the Giants would even look like with a offensive line that ranks in the middle third of the league.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, ready for more good news? The
I can't
Giants
handle it. Go for
the
it.
Giants' offensive weapons look deep. So I saw Theo Johnson come off of the POP. He looked good in practice, and he's in there with Daniel Bellinger, who still looks pretty good. Chris Manhertz is an absolute blocking machine at tight end. They have a true blocker there. Lawrence Cager didn't practice, something minor, I think. But he has reportedly looked good in that tight end room as well. The wide receiver room is super deep now. Wandale got a ton of action, but really, we're looking at probably some of the better 5, 6, like 6th or 7th wide receivers in the league. So Neighbors, Wandale, Hyatt, Slayton. Hodgins still looks good. Remember, Hodgins had some incredible touchdowns the last 2 years, including last year against the Green Bay Packers from DeVito. He had like a toe tap in the end zone. It's a very good deep wide receiver there.
And guess what? There's no lock he's going to be in the opening day roster.
No, that's what I'm saying. So
that's a testament to how the room has gotten better.
Yeah, so after Slayton, it becomes kind of Olszewski is almost definitely going to make the team as a returner. But even in the wide receiver, like the offensive portion of practice, looks pretty shifty, gets open, has some moves in the open field. Really not horrible if he has to play one game because we're just decimated by injuries or something. Really, really not horrible. Allen Robinson might be one of the best guys, wide receivers that's not going to make a 53-man roster. You know what I mean? Isaiah McKenzie is another one that absolutely could contribute on a team. No question in my mind. These guys are 6, 7, 8 wide receivers deep now.
Good.
And the throws have been terrible, but these guys look good in their routes. Like I said, Wandale is looking good.
And let's back up a second. You said the offensive line looked good enough in pass blocking that these guys have time to get open, to make their moves, to run their routes. So, that's important too. They need to be able to, complete their routes and run through their routes in camp to get those reps on what they need to do. So, if offensive line's giving the quarterback no time to throw and they have to break off their routes early and blah, 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 you're not getting that muscle memory of what you need to do. So that's, we're scraping for any good news we can get. And that sounds like that's good news.
I don't even think that's scraping. And I forgot to mention, Hodgins in particular had a very good practice. I think he had 2 bombs in the end zone that he caught by his fingertips.
What's your thought on Neighbors? Just the initial eye test.
I don't even know how to put it to words. It's something that if you had a blindfold on, because you know what practice looks like, right? Like there's people just everywhere, right? And they're all doing their own things. If you had a blindfold on and I put you up in the stands and I have you facing the field and I just rip the blindfold off and I give you 10 seconds to scan the field and then put the blindfold back on.
Am I going to say that because it's the same receiver from the same school?
No.
Okay.
You're going to know who Neighbors is because he just moves so different from everyone else.
Okay.
It is so natural, so fluid, so fast, no wasted movement, just very, very, very smooth. And it's like I said, it was one of those things. I'm just scanning around. I can always tell when it was Neighbors running a route because it's just so different. So this sounds like I'm gonna make out with the guy. I don't want to make it like that, but but from the eye test, it's like my mom could tell you who Neighbors was. You know what I mean?
Let's clip that because that'll be a good one.
One other spot on offense.
Let me one more thing about Neighbors. So is the route running really crisp? Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Because smooth could mean a lot of different things, but I think technical is going to be very important with him.
But there's guys that are good route runners and they're just very start and stoppy and stuff like that, and he knows how to tempo his speed without being so jittery. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Because remember, he's going to get CV1 on week 1. He's going to get not only CB1, but they may get help on that side for him on week 1.
Yep.
As much as this offense, this wide receiver room has improved, the depth from 1 to 5, let's say, this guy is head and shoulders number 1 and then get the majority of the attention.
Yeah. So I think I think they're preparing for this, but I think honestly, Wandale is going to be the one who benefits the most from this. Just the underneath stuff. He is going to win so easily off the line if he gets matched up with a inferior nickel corner or a linebacker or something like that. And, You know Wandale better than most people.
And also something I was going to make a comparison too. I know we don't want to hear the name, but going back to the Florida days with Kadarius Toney,
Right.
where something he was a guy who really benefited from when we had Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, not exactly a complete comparison, Kyle Pitts to Malik Neighbors, but the guy that commanded so much attention, where you had always had to know where he was at every second on every snap. And an underneath guy, which with Kadarius Toney, first gadget, then became a guy who can catch balls underneath and do that stuff, benefited from that, from having, cornerback 2 or 3 or safety 2 back there to try to defend. So I can see how a Wandale type, the stereotype of him to how what Kadarius was doing in college, how that can potentially really benefit him.
Yeah. And I think they're already making him a big part of the game plan. Running back room. I don't think it's any doubt that Devin Singletary is going to be the number one guy. They are really into the versatility of Tyrone Tracy. They mentioned it on Hard Knocks. I thought it was this was kind of interesting how Brandon Brown, I think it was Brandon Brown, was saying that they viewed his limited snaps in the running back role as a positive, not a negative, because of the lack of wear on the tires, essentially.
Especially how old he is too.
Well, yeah, but he's like 25, but
right, but it's also like buying a 2010 car, but only has 5,000 miles on it.
Yeah, but especially when you're just like, oh, I only need a car for about 4 years. Like, I don't think that he's going to be beyond his rookie contract, but he'll be like 29 by then, and that's fine.
But the miles also are just wear and tear on the body. Just how many extra times you've been pounded in a tackle, and how many times you've taken a funny hit, and how many times you've had to play slightly injured. Like those things haven't accumulated over time. So
the other thing that I thought was interesting, and I spoke with Bobby Skinner about this a little bit, and a little bit with Justin, I think. Eric Gray and Dante Miller. Dante Miller, if you remember, is the player that they picked up before the draft on a 3-year deal worth about $2.5 million.
Yes.
That's what caught my eye, really, was the deal that he got. I was like, what the hell? So then I looked into it, and I was like, oh, okay. Eric Gray still does not jump. He could be any guy back there. I could get him confused with Jacob Sailors or Jayshawn Corbin. Dante Miller is a threat out of the backfield to catch the ball and is fucking fast, like really fast. So, I was talking to Bobby about this, and he's like, Bobby's perspective is that if Eric Gray can't pick up pass blocking through the preseason, there's a chance that Dante Miller takes his roster spot. And that seems a little insane, but then you think about how quickly. Remember, Buffalo drafted 3 running backs in like 4-year span, and 2 of them were gone very quickly. Between Devin Singletary went through his 4-year deal, and then they got rid of him, and Zach Moss was gone in like 2 years or 3 years. Like,
listen, Eric, he's not the heir apparent. So if you're not the heir apparent and you're not doing your job and you're kind of in the back half of that 53 anyway, and they get somebody who's better than you, you're cutting a guy who's not making any money and no salary cap as it is. So yes, I would be very, very nervous if I was him. For something, you really have one basic job, really, is to be that. If you have to be on the field, because if you're on the field, there's probably a reason why you have to be on the field. And you could be that weak link very quickly. You better be able to pass block, or else I have no use for you. So it would not surprise me at all if he's on this team.
Yeah. I'm just saying, just because Joe Schoen used a draft pick on him last year does not mean that he'll be on the team this year. I personally am a fan of Dante Miller, but we'll see in the preseason. But it's one of those things where I have a feeling that Miller's going to put on preseason tape that will force the Giants to either let another team take him. Like, I don't think he's going to be practice squad eligible. You know what I'm saying?
Fact check me, Grump. Did Shane himself say something on Hard Knocks that once you get to day 3, you're really just picking names on your board, and it's just like if you're not really picking guys that are necessarily going to be long-term fixes
along those
something
lines,
to that effect. So when he said that, that's alluding to what you're saying, and that takes away a lot of the, well, he drafted him, he's invested in him type of thing. I mean, you're not hanging your reputation on
I think some GMs are a little bit more like that than others.
Some good. Yeah, that's possible. But again, that could be an old school way of thinking where, I'm committed to my 7 guys and I'm graded on how many of my 7 stick, where as opposed to the what make or break a franchise are your big picks and how they impact your team, not whether they stick or not.
Right.
So
Yeah. On the defensive side of the ball, not really much to go over. It's not like Brian Burns had some insane day or anything. Like I said, the tackles were giving some time.
It's hard to tell too, right?
Yeah.
With defense in these type of situations.
Absolutely. I mean, like there were a couple. I think Thibodeau and Burns at one point had a sack, but I think both were assignment errors. The biggest thing is right now it looks like Nick McLeod is the cornerback 2, which is concerning. It doesn't really seem like they know what they want to do there. Tyler Nubin was not practicing, calf issue, but I will say Javarius Owens, last year's 6th or 7th round pick,
7th, I think,
has looked very good. Had an incredible interception in practice where he kind of made a pass breakup, tipped the ball up in the air, and then caught it himself along the sideline. It was very, very good.
So those are 2 late round draft picks from last year, Gray and him.
Yes.
Have you noticed any of the other guys? Have you seen like a growth from year 1 to year 2 of, oh, I remember this guy was, a 5th round pick last year or an undrafted free agent or something, but now, I see something different, like either physically, like, oh, guy's bulked up a bit, or, oh, it seems like he knows what he's doing more than last year. Any other examples that you've seen, or?
No, I from the one practice, no.
Okay.
I will keep that in mind going through the preseason and stuff, but it's hard to tell too because like it's not like even we were at the very top of the bleachers, but like you still don't get like a high enough thing to see the other end of the line and stuff. Like it gets really murky the other side of the field. So I'll keep that looking forward. But one other last thing on the defense. Oh, also they just signed Mario Goodrich, by the way, corner from the Eagles. I'm not that stoked. He kind of stinks. I was not big into him, so whatever. But linebacker Deontay Johnson, I believe, was an undrafted free agent. Really looks like he's pushing Micah McFadden for the other linebacker spot next to Bobby Okereke. What that really means to me, I don't give a shit which one of them starts. I'm perfectly happy with Micah McFadden being the other linebacker on day 1. But the fact that it's kind of a toss-up right now just means that we have 3 very, very good linebackers. 3 starter quality. It's excellent. That's perfect news. But he was in for a ton of tackles and stuff.
Let me ask you a question. They're battling each other to be the starter. Do you feel the bar is high enough that it's like, you don't have 2 guys that kind of suck? And
no, I don't think so at all.
Like
no.
Okay, good.
No, I
you read that 2 ways what you just said. It's like, well, does that mean they're both garbage or
no?
They're
Because
both quality? Yeah.
No. Because you have McFadden in his first year was kind of the lead dog, and he was okay. They bring in Bobby Okereke, and now he's second to him. And last year, I thought that the tandem of the 2 of them was excellent. And now you have a third guy in the mix, and he's pushing McFadden at this point. So you're only getting better the way I see it anyway.
And he's going to be an injury, this team.
Absolutely. So. Well, I mean, it's just football, right? It's 18 weeks. I don't think many guys. Yeah.
And it's us.
But that's basically all I saw from the one practice. I'm going to try to get to another one. But next week, they have joint practices with the Detroit Lions before they play the Lions on Thursday. So we will have an episode next week with whatever news comes through. And then I don't know if you're available, but I will definitely do something right after the game, like a quick little recap of what I saw.
Yeah. Where that game's home or away? How do you even look at the schedule?
I think it's home, bud.
Oh, something? I think I'm actually home next Thursday. Maybe we make an appearance.
With the game?
Yeah.
If I can, I got to check. I should be able to. I can't think of any reason why I wouldn't.
I mean, what could possibly be doing? It's not like my Rays are in the playoff hunt anymore, so maybe I'll go check out a preseason game.
All right, so there you go. So next week we'll have a quick episode early in the week at some point. Not totally sure. Follow at Just Giants Pod on Twitter to figure that out. And that'll just be news that we've heard, and then we'll have something after the game as well. As always, the show can be found on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere where you listen to your normal podcasts. And until next time, go Giants.
Go Giants.